Good morning, grade 10s. Let's just do revision on the hyperbola. That's the third graph we did of the functions. So we start with a standard equation. It's either y equals a over x or y equals a over x plus the q. So if you look at that, you can look at your sketch. If a is greater than 0, positive, the graph will lie in the first quadrant and the third quadrant. The point closest to the origin will be the square root of a, where a is the constant there on top, and then square root of a. So that will be the same coordinates because that's the line of symmetry, so that's y equals x. If your a is negative, less than 0, the one half of the hyperbola will be in second quadrant and the other half will be in fourth quadrant. The domain, that means your x values, will be all the x values, but you exclude the 0. The same with this one here. X will be element of R, that's all the x values, but you exclude x equals 0. The range will be the y values, so you're going to use all the y values except y is equal to the q value. The q value is the constant over there. Same with this one, y will be elements of R and y is not allowed to be equal to the q value. Now a new concept with hyperbola is the asymptote. What is an asymptote? That is where you divide by a 0, undefined answer. So you've got two asymptotes here. That's the y-axis, which we say it's x equals to 0 because it's a vertical line. And then your second asymptote will be y equals, and that one will be the same value as your q value. So you've got two asymptotes. That's why you've got two halves of a hyperbola. Distance from the origin. So if you work from the origin to the closest point, it will be square root of 2 times the a value. And the a value will be your constant. Just remember, if you work with distances, that means your answer will always be positive. Axis of symmetry. Now the line of symmetry then is the folding line. That's the line dividing the graph into equal parts. If you work with that equation, y equals a over x, then y equals x will be the line of symmetry. And you can also get y equals negative x. But if you translate that with q units, you add the q with that as your c value. Sometimes we will restrict the domain, so we will say then x is greater than 0, then you only work with the one arm of the hyperbola, but your line of symmetry will still be y equals x. Or we can restrict it to x is equal to less than 0, and then you only restrict it to one arm there. Okay, so that is just the basic concepts. Now to sketch this, to sketch the graph, you can use the table method. And if I say you must sketch x, y equals 6, you must first make y the subject of your equation. So that means you will divide by 6. So your equation will then be y equals 6 over x. Now the values you choose for x will be the factors of your constant, which is 6. So it will be plus minus 1, plus minus 2, plus minus 3, plus minus 6. You don't have to use the 0 because you know x equals 0 will be the asymptote. Then you can substitute it, or you can use your calculator. If you want to, you can, once again, you can put your calculator on table. You put it on table there. Now once you get your table mode, you get fx, and then you're going to say fraction. So that's a fraction now, and now we say then 6. And remember to do the x in your calculator, you say then the alpha, and then you press the x there. So that is your equation 6 over x. Then I will say equal. That's just another function. We're only going to work with one function. Now where will I start? If you look at the table here, I will start with a negative 6. Right? So you can say negative 6. We will start with negative 6. And then I say I will end then at plus 6. Right? And I will, the step is easy way is only to count in once. So now you can select your factors of 6. So negative 6, negative 1, you can use. That one you don't have to use because 5 is not a factor. You don't have to use that, but you can indicate that on your axis. Then you go to 3. Can you see we get a whole number there? So I'm going to use that factor. So you can choose the factors you want to use there. And so you carry on. You see the 0 will give you error. That's the asymptote. And then you can carry on with your positive values there. So you just choose then the factors of 6. And then you must dot it down. So then you dot it down. And it's a curve. It's not a straight line. Not touching the y axis. Not touching the x axis. That's your asymptotes. This dotted line here is the line of symmetry. It's y equals x. That point A is the closest to the origin, so that will be the square root of 6, because 6 will be your constant there. Right, so if I must sketch the next one, y equals 2 over x minus 1, can you see my q value? It's now the negative 1. Now with the parabola, we know that the q value is the vertical translation. It's the up and the down. Because that is negative 1, it means everything shifting 1 unit downwards. So, instead of this now, instead of y equals 0 be the asymptotes, now it will be 1 unit down. So the q value negative 1 will be my new asymptote. And if it's not 0, you must indicate that with a dotted line. So the dotted line is then your q value, and you will say y equals the q value, which is negative 1. Now that is your new x-axis, so it moves the 1 down. Once again, you work with the factors of your 2 there. You can use the table method, and then you can write the coordinates down. So that's using down. So your horizontal asymptote is now negative 1, and negative 1 is the same as the q value. Your x equals 0, it's still the asymptote there. So it's still asymptote because division by 0 is not allowed. So that's the sketching of graphs. If you must determine the equation, right? So to determine the equation, you must look what is given. In this case, it's hyperbola given. Only one arm is given and one point. And if it's a point, you must remember that's x and that's y. So step 1, what will you do? You will write down the standard form. So the standard form will be y equals a over x, right? Can you see there's no dotted line there? So that means then your q value will be 0. And then you substitute that point. So the 3 and the 4 is x and y. So your y is 4, your x is 3. And then you cross multiply, then you get a is 12. And then you go back and say y is equal, instead of a, you write 12 over x. Right. And now because you only got the one arm, you must say then you only work on the positive x side. So you must indicate that your x is greater than 0. If there's a constant, if there's a dotted line, you start substituting your q first, the dotted line first, before you substitute a point. And that's the hyperbola. Right, let's have a look at your homework then. If we must look at the effect of the q, so what you must do here is that's your x value, so you substitute it into the x. So 4 divide by that, it's negative 1. If I take that and you divide, that's giving you negative 2. Divide by 0, it's error. Divide there by 2, it's 2. Divide by 4, it's 1. What will happen to this one? you will divide, but you add 2 width. So that means this is your division, and then you plus 2, so it's giving you 1. Plus 2 with that one, it's 0. That one you can't calculate, so that one then is then 2 plus 2, so then is a 4, plus 2 is giving you a 3. With this one here, you will say 4 over the x value, but you minus the 3. So that one is negative 1, minus the 3, it's negative 4. That then giving you negative 5. That one stays your error. That is 2. Minus the 3, it's negative 1. And then you've got 1. Minus the 3, it's negative 2. So now how will you sketch this? So if you take the first one, that's your coordinates there. Negative 4 and 1. So it's negative 4 and negative 1. So you make your dot there. Then it's negative 2, negative 2. Make your dot over there. 0, that means asymptote, so you must join those dots, and it forms a curve, not touching your y-axis, not touching there, and you just put arrows. Although you only use those 2 points there, you must carry on so that that whole quadrant will be a sketch. Can you see it starting there? Now I go to the positive side. So now I will say then 2 and 4 and 4 and 1 and 1 and 4. Okay. And then you join the dots. And once again it's a curve, and that's it. You must at least put 1 coordinate on per arm. So you must write the coordinates down there. Okay, and that's your first one. If you take the next one, now what will happen to the next one? You must shift it 2 down. 2 down, so that means then my negative 4 will be, sorry, you must shift it 2 up. Negative 4 will be that one. Negative 2 will be 0, and then your error. So that means your graph will look like that now. It's still a hyperbola, and you write it down there. Negative 4 and 1. Then you do the second arm. You also always get 2 arms there. So then it will be 1, 2. What will 2 be? It will be 4. What will the 4 be? It will be a 3. So everything shifted up 2 units, and that's your graph. What will happen now with the other one? If we see with the next one with a minus 3. So if you have that one moves down, so now you will have negative 4 and negative 4. So that's your point there. So you write it down, negative 4, negative 4. Then negative 2, negative 5. So it's negative 2, negative 5. So all the points shifting 3 down. So you still keep your curve, and that will be your graph. That's the first half. Then you do exactly the same on this positive side. So 2 is giving you negative 1. And the 4 is giving you negative 2. See? So that means it will lie like this. But can you see that one there is a plus 2. So that is called my asymptote. Now asymptote you indicate with a dotted line. So with the orange graph at 2, you must put your dotted line there because that's your asymptote. So from there, because your graph shifted up, so from there you must indicate it with a dotted line, and you must write y equals 2. If you look at this, the third graph there, it's negative 3, your constant. So with negative 3, at negative 3, you must do your dotted line there. And that's then the asymptote. And that's y equals negative 3. So that's then the answers to that questions. Okay, I will put the memo of the other graphs on Google Classroom. Just do this question 3. If we say now this is given to you, now how do I know that's a hyperbola? It's because the constant is standing on the x, and that's my q value. So if the constant is standing on the x, it's then hyperbola. They say, okay, write down the domain. Domain means all the x values. So the x values will be everything, but you exclude the 0. Write down the range. The range means you start with a y. It will be everything. You exclude the 2 there. Okay. Write down the equations of the axis of symmetry. Axis of symmetry is then, it must pass through the 0. So the new origin will be at 2. So because this is a negative gradient, so this line of symmetry, that one, will then be y equals negative x, and your constant will be 2 because it's passing through 2 there. Then the other line of symmetry will be this one, passing through the new origin there because you translated it up. So that's your line of symmetry. It's also a dotted line, but now it's a positive gradient, and once again that is plus 2. Okay.